Hey, what's going on? It's Joey Myers from the Hitting Performance Lab, and in this video we're going to answer the reader question of how to get kids buying into your movements when every hitting instructor in the area is teaching robotic sequential hitting positions. We're going to talk about three things: hypnosis, good or bad. We're going to talk about internal versus external cues, and listing successful case studies. So this is a thorny issue, and the big question I want you to ask is, these instructors, these local instructors, are they teaching, even though the hitters are robotic and they're teaching these sequential hitting positions, are they teaching effective mechanics? In other words, are they teaching human movement rules or principles that are validated by science and they're applying them to hitting? If the answer is yes, these robotic movements are just the case of somebody learning something new. Even my hitters, teaching them effective mechanics that are validated by science, human movement rules validated by science, they're going to be robotic in the beginning. And it's only because they don't have enough movements in their repertoire, their data collection in their brain yet, to where that movement's going to be more natural, and it's going to feel awkward to them. So to them, it's going to feel robotic. So we want to make sure we answer that question. Are they teaching effective movements, or are they not teaching effective movements, so ineffective movements? So we want to, in each case, or in the case of the ineffective movement instructors, we want to, for one, we shouldn't be sending our kids to ineffective instructors in the first place. Wasting our time, finding somebody who teaches effective mechanics and going to them. But say if it's a coach, it's a high school coach, and the kid's going to an instructor Joey, and high school coach Ron, right? And high school coach Ron is teaching ineffective mechanics, and they're teaching exact opposite of what instructor Joey's teaching. You want to give the kid a heads up first. Boy or girl, say, hey, coach is going to tell you to do the exact opposite of what I just told you right now. So make sure that they are aware of that, so when coach comes over to them and says, all right, Sally, let's do door knocking knuckles, and I'm going to stay here for 10 swings while you do your door knocking knuckle, make sure you got it. You want Sally to bob her head, so we call it the bobblehead technique, bob your head, say, okay coach, I got it. Go to door knocking knuckle, take the swings. When coach turns around and walks away, go back to the normal grip, okay? We got to be diplomatic with this. We have to be respectful of coach. We have to make sure we're more of a politician than we are trying to dig our heels in and make somebody upset, especially coach who's right in the lineup, okay? So that's first thing, give them a heads up. Next thing is, we talked about bobblehead. The next thing is preach science. So preach the human movement rules or principles that are validated by science. Preach it. I tell my kids, I even tell my 7-year-olds, I've learned to explain them in a way that helps them to understand, giving pictures and things like that. So that kind of comes with the territory as you skill acquisition, as you teach more. But preach science. Also, promote curious experimentation. Let your kids experiment with things. We experiment all the time in our sessions. I have them try one way, the right way, then try the wrong way, the ineffective way. I have them go between those two so that they can feel the difference between effective and ineffective. So promote curious experimentation. Also, you'll come up with movement tests, and I have a bunch on the site you can go and check out, maybe put movement tests or whatever, but they're kind of sprinkled throughout the site, and I'll give you an example of that in a second. But also, you want to have them observe major league hitters that have for the most part, effective mechanics, ones like Bryce Harper and Andrew McCutchen and Ryan Braun and Jose Bautista and Donaldson and Miguel Cabrera. Have them go on YouTube, put whatever hitter name you want them to search, and put slow motion swing, and have them observe the mechanics for themselves. Or if they like to watch baseball or softball, it's like Sierra Romero and Lauren Chamberlain on the softball side, have them watch them on TV and see if they're actually doing the mechanics you're teaching them to do. So an example of a movement test would be like I call or what Dr. Kelly Starrett at mobilitywatt.com calls the one joint rule. So a lot of hitting instructors teach their hitters to get their eyes behind the barrel or their nose behind the barrel, and this can cause the back ear to go into the back shoulder. I also see, like Andrew McCutchen, his chin goes into his chest at impact. Some of my younger hitters, you don't see this at the major league level, but you see the head go back like the eyes are looking into the ceiling. Well, the one joint rule test, what Dr. Kelly Starrett talks about, is get the hitter standing in front of you like this, staring straight ahead, get their arm out, whatever their strongest arm is. If they're lefty, then left arm. You're going to have them splay their fingers out nice and wide. You're going to have them try and keep you from bending their arm. So you're going to try and bend their arm as they're staring straight ahead. Then what you want them to do after that is, now you want them to look up and try and keep you from bending their arm. Have them go into their chest, try and keep you from bending their arm. Have their ear go into their shoulder and have you keep from bending their arm. And what that test should show is that they're strongest when their eyes are straight ahead, when that neck doesn't bend, doesn't go into what we call local extension or local flexion. That's a movement test. That's an example of a movement test that I would use with my hitters. We have grip tests. We have all kinds of different things that we do that shows them the more superior, the more effective mechanic. Let's go into internal versus external cues. Now, an internal cue, an example would be land at a 150-degree angle with the front knee. Okay? Now, most hitters, unless they're very math-oriented or geometry-oriented, are not going to understand what that means. So what I say is getting shorter. So our coaching cues have to instead be more internal, which is trying to bend a knee at a certain degree or have an arm bent at a certain degree, right? That we talk about getting shorter. So a lot of times what I do is I'll put a bat from the start of their swing will be at maybe their mouth level, and then what I want them to do at the end of, at their landing position, is by the time they land, I want them to be underneath that bat or tee or whatever you guys use. I want them to get shorter. Okay, that's an external cue. This is the external part of it, and they're trying to get under that. Hitters tend to respond, most hitters tend to respond better to that kind of cue. Another one would be like getting to power V, right? And we never want to get to power V at impact, but we're going to try and get to power V past impact. So instead of saying power V, which is this V that the arms kind of make, what we could also say is let the barrel chase the ball. So barrel chasing the ball. So ball comes in, we hit the ball, and now we want that barrel to finish and follow that ball's path out into the field. That gets us to power V. Again, that's another external cue that most hitters get better than the internal cue of a power V. Another example would be a back leg. Get the back leg at 90 degrees. Right here, which is going to help us get under the ball, get the ball on a line drive, okay? Instead of saying get the back leg at 90 degrees, what we can say is stay shorter. So I say getting shorter, so we set this marker here, we get shorter, and then as we turn, we stay shorter. So we should stay under the same bar. Again, external cue. So external cues are much better than internal cues. Other ones would be like hit the ball out there, hit the ball out there, hit the ball here, hit the ball here. So those are external cues that help. The last thing that you can do in order to get kids to buy into the movements that you're teaching is that you have to give them case studies. And give them case studies of kids their age or younger or even smaller than them, okay? Because if they're bigger and they're seeing that a 66-pound kid can hit the ball 180 feet, or a 98-pound kid can hit the ball 300 feet multiple times, and this kid is 120 pounds, what do they think? 150 pounds, what can they do, right? So you want to give them case studies of people you've worked with, or use my case studies. I have few case studies that I mention here and there that are sprinkled throughout the site. Give them my case studies. Give them somebody else's case studies that they're using, because it makes it more real to them than if you just tell them, well, do this, this is the science behind it, this is this, I just want you to do it, your major leaguers do it, and that's it. But a lot of times what you find with kids that are learning how to swim, if they're watching adults all the time swim, a lot of times it takes them longer to learn how to swim. But the minute you put them in a pool with kids their age or younger that are swimming around like fish, they learn to swim pretty quick. It's just because they're just birds of a feather flock together. They're able to make that connection because that kid is a little closer to their age, or younger than them, or smaller than them if we're talking about the case in hitting. So in this video, again, we answered the question, how to get kids buying into your movements when every hitting instructor in the area is teaching robotic sequential hitting positions. We talked about answering the question first, are they teaching effective or are they teaching ineffective movements? That's a biggie. If they're teaching effective but we're still being robotic, then it's just because the kid hasn't gotten enough, the hitter hasn't gotten enough repetition yet to make it natural. We went over three things. We talked about hypnosis being good or bad, right? Effective movements versus non-effective movements or ineffective movements. We talked about internal cues versus external cues, and then we talked about how you should list successful case studies of hitters their age or smaller or younger. Make sure that you're swinging smarter by moving better. And before I let you go,
the Hitting Performance Lab wants to know, did you know that reducing ground balls and swing and miss strikeouts has less to do with hand path and more to do with knee action? Have you ever heard, finish taller? To drive the ball, you have to uppercut. Well, we created a free video revealing the results of a scientific study that showed a reduction in ground balls of 27% and an increase in productive balls in the air of 24% over 200 swings without messing with hand path. Click here now to get the video while it's still free.